Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Hopefully you guys got some good rest yesterday and got to spend a little bit of time with family. We're going to break down this Hunger Games movie into 2 decodes. It's packed full. But before we do that, we are going to cover a weird happening that happened a couple days ago at the Canadian border. And this was the day after we mentioned portals and rainbows. And there was this weird car wreck. And now originally they thought this was some kind of terrorist attack. But then they walked it back and said that it was some kind of high-speed accident. Now I'm going to play the video here. This is pretty crazy. And then we'll talk about what we were saying before all this went down. So here it is. They've got the footage here. Let's see if this pulls up. At the border, it was a huge wreck, crash, and all kinds of fire. The actual, I guess the cars were obliterated. There wasn't much left of them. Let's pull this up. Here's the video here. And you can see it in the background. Now this looks weird. It almost looks like a missile. Look at this car. And it like rear ends another car and it's just obliterated. And this occurred at the Rainbow Bridge, which of course is a portal. Over water, a border crossing, a doorway. And even though this turned out to be a big nothing sandwich, it definitely had a psychological effect on people going into the holiday, didn't it? Because of the initial reports of this being a terror attack. Now, what kind of psychological effect do these false alarms have on people? I want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the Hunger Games, Songbirds and Serpents. Now, my thought on this is they simply want to reinforce the false sense of security that Americans think that they enjoy, to cause us to be thankful, to put our thanks in all of the wrong places, right? Thank you for a military. Thank you for, our power in the world. These are false senses of security and false places to put your faith, right? Because even though they walked this back and said, oh, it was a car that just went out of control and it's not a terrorist attack, in your subconscious mind, you still perceive this as a terror attack, right? And this is all about reinforcing the connection between God and country, which the two aren't supposed to be connected because God's will in our country is completely different than the controller's will that they're imposing upon us. So they wanted everyone sitting around at their holiday Thanksgiving meal, thinking of the government and the military that this was not what we thought it was, is what I think. Now, could this have been a spiritual manifestation? I believe it may have been. Or we've even looked into the Matrix artificial intelligence. We've seen this depicted in TV series where the artificial intelligence will sense that there is a disturbance in the status quo or a disturbance in the agenda, and then they begin moving pawns on the chessboard. They begin moving the chess pieces around to course correct the agenda, right? So this is a possibility as well. This could have been an autonomous vehicle. We don't know that yet. I don't think the story ever discloses if it was an autonomous vehicle or an electric vehicle. But if that's the case, it could have even easily been taken control of and did what it did. Now, here's what I do know. Remember the Severance decode in which we decoded that black door painting? And I told you that the door was a portal or a bridge. And the black goo paint, remember he squeezed that out onto the palette? And I told you it was a false rainbow? Well, that was the day before this happened. Now I'm going to play this for you, just a little piece of this. Listen. Now, what else is going on? Well, doors are gates, aren't they? We've firmly established that. And one character on the outside begins to remember part of the inside. But it comes through in his subconscious, and it manifests in his artwork. He doesn't know what he's painting. He's just painting this black door in a black hallway. But he knows it's connected to the black goo, the black DNA. Watch. He just keeps painting the image over and over again. And this is the substance that will X out the man. It's the black goo. It's the false light, the false rainbow. And in fact, we saw this black goo in iPetGo2 dripping into the water. Dripping into the water. And the sheen that it caused on the surface of the water looks like a rainbow, but it's the false light. It's the false rainbow. What the heck? So that was the day before this crash. And now I'm going to show you that scene from iPetGo2. Here it is here. I've got it in slow motion. This is what I was referring to. But that's weird that the next day, the Rainbow Bridge, there was a fire and a crash. Is this the Rainbow Bridge? Watch the drop as it falls into the water and creates the false rainbow. Weird times, you guys. Now, we're talking about all this because it actually does fit into the Hunger Games decode that we're going to do today. Part 1 of 2. This rainbow theme, the Rainbow Bridge. Let's get into this right now. The new Hunger Games movie called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Or should we call it The Ballad of Feathered Serpents? Yes, snakes and feathers. Now, this film actually released on the 5th of November, which is a portal date. It's a date of human sacrifice where demons have to reach 88 miles per hour to travel through time. Or should we call it repossess souls down through history? There's something about the number 88 that matters to these demons as they possess people down through history. And this is how they time travel forward through the millennia, down to the last days. Now, the other release date of Songbirds and Snakes is the 322nd day of the year. 322 Skull and Bones on leap years. Here it is right here. November 17th, 322nd day of the year in leap years. And the devil character in the film, this woman here, let's see if we can find her. Where'd she go? This woman here plays the devil character. She was born on 8/11, which is 8 times 11 is 88. And 44 days remain from the release date. The second release date, 44 days left in the year, in a normal year, which is half of the number 88. Now, I go over these numbers, not to confuse you. It's actually very, very simple. It's a consistency of these numbers being used in occult ways to essentially paint a picture. It's a ritual picture. Now, there's another weird synchronicity here with these numbers. November 17th, the 321st day of the year, that's 321, that's a countdown. Well, the other main character was born on the 123rd day of the year. Where'd she go? Let's back this up. And it's the woman that plays Lucy. This is her here. She was born on May 3rd, the 123rd day of the year. There you go, right there. So now you can see these connections. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. That's the going in and coming out. That's another portal, right? Now that we've got the numbers out of the way, as I said yesterday, the true story of songbirds and snakes is a retelling of the Bible, all the way back to the garden. Let me go back here and check in with you guys, and we'll keep going with Songbirds and Snakes, the Hunger Games. Good morning, everybody. Now, first, the speaking serpent, the singing serpent, who, instead of losing his ability to speak, he sings loudly and defiantly. And that's really the central theme of Songbirds and Snakes. It is rebellion. Because after the seduction of the seed of the woman, remember, the enmity between the two seeds, well, that actually continued during the enslavement of the 12 tribes of Israel by Egypt and the subsequent Exodus, in which they were chased across the wilderness. And so the 12 tribes of Israel become the 12 tributes of the Hunger Games. The film follows the main character named Lucy Gray. Let's pull up these clips here. Now, I'm going to try to help you with the sound because this is kind of a off version of the film. It's a little bit darker than normal, but I'm going to try to help you with the sound and the imagery. This is Lucy Gray. And at first glance, I originally thought she was the Lucifer character because Lucifer. But she actually ends up being the Eve archetype. And she's seduced by Lucifer, which ends up being Snow, which is her mentor. Now, her last name, Gray, basically means that she is devoid of the Holy Spirit rainbow, because the Holy Spirit really represents the rainbow, doesn't it? Rainbows and doves is the Holy Spirit representation here on earth. And there's examples of that in the Bible, the rainbow covenant, and also we looked at the rainbow related to Jesus as well as the doves. Now let's keep going with this, because in these opening sequences, Lucy loves snakes.
Well, I think Thor's a very smart age to be.
Where'd you find that snake?
Oh, he found me. Must have been a music lover. My singing calmed him right down.
So, here they're in a cage. They're about to go to the Capitol to compete in the Hunger Games. And she says, "Where did you find that snake?" And Lucy says, "He found me." Well, obviously that's the snake in the garden with Eve is what happened there. The feathered serpent, the speaking snake. Now, in the beginning, let's go back to the book of Genesis. The snake spoke the first audible language. Essentially, he was literally singing a different tune than God was. God could sing to Adam and Eve through the Spirit. There may not have even been vocal cords, but somehow this voice originated from the serpent's mouth as some kind of audible music. And that's what voice and speech really is, isn't it? It's almost as if you're singing if you're thinking about it. There are notes and tones that define the context of what you're saying. It's communicating through music or song. And remember, God cursed the snake to lose its voice, to lose its singing ability, because remember, the devil was in charge of music and song, wasn't he? So he was cursed, and we had figured out that he lost his syrinx. He lost his vocal box. The syrinx is the vocal box, the X, which is actually shaped like a Y, in the neck, in the throat, above the lungs. And we looked at the anatomy of a snake, and one of the snake's lungs is actually atrophied to the point to where it does not work. One of a snake's lungs is flattened and does not work, which renders its syrinx incapable of producing sound. So this had to have been part of the curse that God put on the snake, to go on its belly, and the only sound that a snake can make is a hiss, which is white noise. We had found that the hiss of a snake is actually white noise. And of course, the snake licks the dust almost as if it's gasping to make a real sound. Wow. Now, why did God do this? Well, obviously, the punishment fits the crime. God did this because the serpent used its voice to deceive Eve. And it's also inferred that the serpent used to be able to fly or have wings like a flying dragon before the curse. Now, why can we assume that? Well, because he was an angel. All angels have wings, don't they? So, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is obviously a blasphemous theme of rebellion and defiance against the curse, isn't it? It is rebellion, song, and snakes. And all the glory to the Most High for revealing these things to us, right? Let's keep watching here.
Can I touch your dress?
Of course.
Now, this is Lucy's dress, and it appears like snakes slithering around flowers. Now, flowers obviously are fruit, aren't they? They're not going to come right out and put a bowl of fruit on the dress, because that would be too obvious, right? So instead, they put the flower of the fruit, which is ultimately a metaphor for fruit, isn't it? This is her dress. You can almost make out the Baphomet on the front of her dress. And this dress actually becomes a prominent theme in the beginning of the movie. They compare her to a clown. And I'll tell you why in a second.
What is that dress? She's some sort of clown?
What is that dress? Is she some sort of a clown? Now, there are some channels out there that actually look at the Nephilim. And apparently, if you look at some of the writings about the Nephilim, they're actually described as clown-like. Now, how could that be? Well, the Nephilim were the ones that taught humanity makeup. The shadowing of the eyes, mascara, and ultimately, they probably wore like battle face paint, like a cover-up. And so they were described as clowns. Now, there's a lot more to it than that. I just gave you the Cliff Notes version. But all of this points to these underlying themes that most people don't see. When they go to the theater, they have no idea about the 12 tribes of Israel being the 12 tributes, and clowns and Lucifer. They have no idea. But all these themes permeate throughout the Bible. Let's keep watching here.
Lucy Gray. I didn't know.
And if we bend a few capital laws, we could even have them place bets. People need someone to root for and someone to root against.
Now, Lucy is selected as one of the 12 tributes to compete in the Hunger Games, of course, but she is expected to surely die. But the serpent has other plans. What are the plans of the serpent? Well, the right-left paradigm, the team reality, us versus them. And that, of course, is the true meaning of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is the team reality. It is the us versus them, the duality, right? So, what better way to do that? Place bets. And then you wonder, right? Why is gambling such a big deal for Christians? Well, because it's part of the duality. I never really understood that when I was younger. I was like, well, what's wrong with gambling as long as you don't go overboard and waste all your money? Well, the problem with it is the duality. It's the competition. There's something about that is very demonic, because it is how the devil keeps us under control in this reality. It's through us versus them, through competition.
We need them to invest. He's sabotaging us. That girl's not gonna win these games. You saw her, she's underfed, unstable. I know Lucy Gray may not win in the arena, but if you give her a chance, I would bet the plinth prize that she can win people's attention.
So she's not expected to win. She shall surely die. That's out of the Bible. That's out of the book of Genesis in the garden. But the devil, like I said, has other plans. And she surely won't die. And this is what the devil, who is played by this character, well, this character here, this woman is the devil, but then this guy, Snow, is Lucifer. And he tells her she surely won't die, right? So that's his role, obviously. Now, during Snow's first encounter with Lucy, he gives her a sacrificial white rose. Watch.
Win people's attention. But I'm your mentor.
What does she do with the sacrificial white rose? She eats it. She partakes of the fruit of the garden, of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, in the form of the petal of the flower, right? Because remember, flowers are fruit. Everybody knows what rose hips are, right? Well, rose hips are basically the flower before it becomes a flower, right?
Tastes like bedtime. When I was little, my mama used to bake me in buttermilk and rose petals.
Now, very quickly, God revealed to me early in this decode that Lucy Gray has to be the Eve archetype, the seed of the woman, which of course would later become the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 tributes. Now let's keep watching here, because there are 3 trimesters of birth. We all know that. And when you divide 12 up into 3 trimesters, what do you get? You get 4, 4, and 4. And that has to be the 144,000, which are the elect from the 12 tribes of Israel, right? That were birthed in through the Red Sea. So, if it isn't clear by now, the tributes are the 12 tribes of Israel. And yes, there are 12. And so the hunger aspect of all this, because this is the Hunger Games, that has to be a metaphor for the Israelites who existed on physical and spiritual manna.
How do you think your tribute will have a chance if you can't eat?
So you're talking about starvation and not being able to eat. Now, what other comparisons can we draw from this? Well, instead of being chased by the Watcher giants through the Exodus, in the Hunger Games version, the giants simply sit back and watch. They watch the tribes consume each other. And in this version, there are no battles between them in which the giants keep losing. In this version, the 12 tribes kill each other. They turn on each other as the Watchers sit back and watch. Now, there are 2 sets of 12, which makes this even more weird. 12 versus 12, and that has to represent the Gemini aspect, the twinning aspect of this on some level. The 2 generations of the first 6 generations of man that seem to mirror each other in their names, from the Cain line crossing over into the Seth line. The names matched up, 6 and 6 on each side, 6 generations. Now think about how sick this is. Mocking the hunger of the Israelites and self-annihilation instead of the enemy losing. And then that's when I realized that the Snow character has to be Lucifer. And he continues to try to seduce the seed of the woman. And that's what this becomes all about. He wants to bring her into the capital, into Egypt. First she's forced to, but then he wants to bring her there after she wins the Hunger Games. But she wants to stay in the garden. She wants to stay in the wilderness. Now, the bloodline of giants and watchers who chase the 12 tribes in the Bible, they also include the Egyptian pharaohs, the original Freemasons. Why are they Freemasons? Because they rejected the cornerstone. They want to be free of the cornerstone, so they're Freemasons. And that's why that symbol is actually worn by the mentors. Here you can see it on his lapel here. Let's back this up a little bit. Here you see it on his lapel. That's the square and compass. It's an altered version of it, but there it is. And then it's actually, the symbol is also central in the capital.
How do you think your tribute will have a chance if you can't eat?
Here it is right here at the top. Now we're going to break down these other symbols as well, because this is Panem. Panem is the capital. And what makes this weird is, remember Melania Trump tweeted this out on 4/4/2015, April 4th? She was out on the patio at Mar-a-Lago, and we took a closer look at this, and we said, oh boy, that's Pan with his hooves and blowing his pipe. Was this a precursor to something? She called it tea time on my patio. This is where Melania drinks her tea, underneath the view of Pan, which is essentially a demon. So we have Panem. I'll put a link to this because a couple of you had asked me about where this tweet was because nobody could find it, but I found it again. Now, how does that link into all this? Well, this is Panem. It's the place of sacrifice, isn't it? And let's break down some of these symbols. Now, that was the square and compass at the top. This symbol right here was a little bit harder for me to find, but I think I figured out what this symbol is. I believe this symbol is the Aleph, or the Alpha. Let's take a look. This seems to be the variation of the symbol. It also can represent the legs, or walking, which then transferred over into hieroglyphics. This letter here, the letter A, the Alpha. You can see it's essentially the same symbol here. Let's flip back and forth so you can see this. It's essentially the same symbol, except it's reversed. Let's go back. There it is. The first letter, the Alpha. Here it is in Roman cursive, so you get a better view of it. Now, Roman is very closely related to Latin and Egyptian. Here's the Aleph symbol, which actually looks a lot like the very top symbol, which we thought was the square and compass. So the two could be one and the same. Aleph. So essentially you have two Alephs. You have an Aleph, which is the Alpha, and then down here you have the X, the Tav, which is the Omega. So essentially what they're saying here is that they are the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. But of course we know they're not. But this has to mean we are at the end, doesn't it? But the devil's going to give his version of that so that he has us all confused. Crazy times, you guys. Now, the symbol, like I said, also resembles the ancient Egyptian hieroglyph for the word legs, as you can see here. So that confirms the whole Exodus aspect, or the chasing, the chase, the seed of the woman being chased and pursued by the seed of the serpent. Now, let's keep going here. Like I said, I'm going to break this up into two parts because I only got to about 20 minutes into the movie in today's decode. But at this point, one of the characters is bit on the neck by a bat. Watch.
What happened? happened to his neck?
First night on the train. He didn't sleep a wink the whole journey because he was keeping the bats off me so I would get some rest. The bat part. You really...
He gets bit on the neck by a bat. Now, we already know what that is. The 2 fangs, the 2 syringes, the 2 shots. The bat virus. Wow.
Want to take care of me in that arena, Coriolanus? Start by thinking I can actually win.
So there's more. You shall not surely die. That was the first lie that the devil told, right? So she convinces Snow that she can win. Now, at this point, they start revealing some of the weapons that will be used in the arena. And the first one we really see is these rainbow serpents. And that's when the other devil character is revealed, this woman here that we talked about earlier in the decode. Listen to what this girl says, because remember, this is all about injections, isn't it? She asks if there was a point.
Is there a point to the color?
There's a point to every...
She said, is there a point to the color? Okay. And there ends up being a point to the color because she's bitten by the 2 fangs, the points of the fangs of one of these serpents. Where is she bitten? On the right hand. In other words, she receives the mark.
If you've handled their food, for example, or if they've inhaled the sweat of your palm on a page.
I'm not above using spectacle to create a little terror. A strategy your classmate here articulated very well in his proposal.
Bitten in the right hand, she receives the mark. Now, this is all COVID programming, isn't it? Because next, the devil character is going to mention the flu, just after she's bit in the right hand.
You asked about the colors, Miss Devcode. I want my enemies to see a rainbow of destruction engulfing the world.
And how she caught this sudden flu.
Wow. Now, you'll notice that this woman has eyes of different colors, and that is significant. Why? Because the eyes of different colors is called heterochromia. What is heterochromia? It is hybridization. Now we see these in cats, dogs, 2 eyes, 2 irises of different colors. And some human people have this as well. Now, if you have this, don't freak out. It doesn't mean you're doomed. Jesus came for all of us, regardless of what's in our blood. But you have to do what he says. You have to believe to be saved. Jews and Gentiles. Okay? Nobody is doomed just because you're born in this reality. God would not do that. He loves us. That's why Jesus had to come, because he spilled his blood to correct our blood, regardless of what's running through our blood. Now, I know there are some people that believe that you are born condemned. I do not believe the Bible says that. I do not believe that, regardless of your bloodline, okay? Now, let's keep going here, because next, well, let me check in with you guys. Been talking and talking. Not even sure if we're connected. Looks like we're here. Very good. Now, then we're going to see the crack in the firmament. I told you this was all about the Bible, and it actually is. We're going to watch Lucifer fall like lightning from heaven. This is crazy. So, snow represents Lucifer falling like lightning from heaven. And the piece of steel and miry clay, or iron and miry clay, that falls on him is shaped like a spider. Now, it's shaped like a spider for a reason. Why? Because spiders have blue blood. So Eve pulls the blue-blooded spider off of Lucifer, which is snow. Because the blue blood was caused by this union. That's why the spider is between them. And it's what connects them. It's on fire. You see the legs coming out and the concrete in the middle. We are in the last kingdom of iron and miry clay. So Eve saves him. Now all this is confirmed in the very next scene when they explain that a third of the angels fell. How? Well, they explain that a third of the tributes actually died in that bombing. So this is the war in heaven.
4 tributes were killed.
Everyone's terrified, Gloria.
What happened? It was a rebel bombing. They must have been planning it for months. The rebels released a message. They said they wanted to tear down the symbol of the Hunger Games on live TV.
Now, we're only about a third of the way through this decode, but we will pick up the rest of this on Sunday. We're going to skip tomorrow and pick up the rest of it on Sunday, and part 2 is even more crazy than part 1. So that's part 1 of the Hunger Games. And then on, I guess, Monday, you're not going to believe what somebody sent me. On Monday, we're going to cover a 1988 film called Biggles. What is the film about? It's about Gemini time travelers. They literally call them time traveling twins. What is their job? To go back in time just before the first pandemic of 1918. To do what? To find a secret sound frequency weapon that the Germans use to do what? To turn steel into dust. That was 13 years before 9/11 that this movie came out. So I've already got that decoded, but I can't overwhelm you guys with all these decodes all at once. So I'm breaking this up into decodes by day. So Sunday will be part 2 of the Hunger Games, and Monday will be the movie Biggles from 1988. Literally, they deploy this weapon, and then they walk out into the battlefield, and he grabs the shaft of a gun, and it crumbles into his hands like dust. Do you see now the time travel connection to what happened on 9/11 and how that connects to Trump in that weird way? The Biff 88 Back to the Future thing? It has to be connected. And they're just laughing at us, aren't they? Not us, because we figured it out, but to the rest of the people. They're laughing because they're literally showing people the truth, and people just laugh at us, and they're laughing at them for laughing at us. They're like, they figured it out. So, can't wait to show you that. You guys, the weapon in Biggles is literally a giant radar tower. A dish sending out literal frequencies. I could not believe it. So thanks to the subscriber who sent that to me. How did the subscriber find that particular movie? Well, one of the characters from Severance, the TV series that we just decoded, played in that movie back in 1988. So, all right, you guys. Well, I'll let you guys get back to family and friends. I know this is a long weekend for a lot of you. I love you guys. And you guys have any questions before I get off here? The movie is called Biggles. Biggles. If you wanted to like screen that today or something, if you got bored. All right. So what are the highlights of tomorrow's part 2 of the Hunger Games? Well, there's going to be the speck and the beam symbolism. The speck and the beam in the eye. It's so clear. They literally say the beam. Lucy climbs into a duct, an air duct, but it's really a tear duct because she cries inside of the duct. And then she drops specks into a guy's eye. It's crazy, you guys. It's all about the Bible. As are all of these retellings of the Bible done by the enemy to basically disenfranchise you from true belief in the Most High. There's something about the stories in the Bible that are powerful. They're supernatural in training and helping you understand God better. And so what the enemy does is he retells these stories to try to neutralize God's power and God's Holy Spirit. So, all right, you guys. Well, I'll let you get back to it. If there's no questions for me. Notice that many of these idols lose their talent after a while. Yes, that is true, Leona. I was just noticing that the other day. They have like this window of their magic sorcery where they're most effective, and then they kind of fall off. Yes, Steve, and I agree. We do not belong here. Yeah, I was blown away, Christy. Yeah, just blown away. But wait till you see tomorrow. It's even crazier. All right, you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Much love.